Hi everybody, this is Raphael from Ohio Tropics. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the ponytail palm, or Beaucarnea recurvata, which is the botanical name. I hope I pronounced that right. You never know with those names. It's also commonly known as elephant foot tree because of the swollen base that often becomes quite large as it ages. In this episode today, I'll be talking about general care of your plant. So I'll be going into light, watering, your soil type or potting mix type, as well as some common problems that you probably have experienced. The two most common problems are yellowing lower leaves and brown leaf tips. Although it's commonly known as ponytail palm, it is not a palm at all. And actually, it's in the asparagus family, believe it or not. Ponytail palms are actually native to Mexico, and some specimens can even be hundreds of years old. They can get quite tall, even 10 to 20 feet tall, and the bases can get really big and huge, hence the name elephant foot tree. Most plants that you'll see only have one caudex, which is a swollen base. Mine actually has several here, and I'll show you shortly. When I purchased it, this plant was probably about this tall, 6 or 7 years ago, and it's grown quite a bit. Here you can see the base of my plant has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 caudex. I'm not sure what the plural is. 5 of them, and typically you'll only see one, but mine came with a cluster of them, so I left the plant as is. And here is a specimen on the split screen here that has one single caudex. This is how you would normally see a ponytail palm, and look how big the caudex is. So they take quite a bit of time in order to get that size, but they'll eventually get there. And here is another one. This is a variegated ponytail palm, which you really don't see many of these days. This was actually seen on a visit that I took to California earlier this year. Indoors, you'll want to give your plant plenty of light. So the brightest window that you have, go ahead and put your plant there. My own plant actually is sitting in front of a fairly large eastern-facing window. It gets plenty of morning sun when the sun comes out in Ohio. Unfortunately, there could be long periods of time before the sun comes out in Ohio where I live. This is where I keep my ponytail palm growing. This is in front of a large eastern-facing window, so it does get morning sun. Another tip I have here, since the leaves get really long, I like to have my plant growing on a pedestal so that the leaves can cascade down and not touch the floor. Before I forget, click that subscribe button below. As you can see, the plant is doing beautifully in front of that window. It can live and survive in front of a window that has no direct sun, but I would recommend, if you can, to have at least a few hours of direct sunlight. It will greatly benefit the plant, and you'll get much stronger growth and sturdier growth as well as faster growth. This is not a plant that you would want to keep far away from a window. Definitely give your plant the brightest light that you can indoors. As far as watering goes, I like to allow my potting mix to go completely dry before watering again. I always water thoroughly until water escapes the drainage hole at the base. Never let your plant sit in water, otherwise you'll quickly get root rot with this plant. As far as the potting mix goes for this plant, I like to use 2 parts of a good cactus or succulent mix, mixed in with 1 part of 1/4 inch pumice. And I'll put the link in the description below to the pumice that I like to use. Pumice is basically just a volcanic rock, and I like to mix it into the potting mixes of plants that need to dry out fairly quickly and that require very sharp drainage. You'll get excellent drainage with the blend that I described here. It works really well for me. Oftentimes people ask me, how often should I water my ponytail palm? And those of you that know me know that I don't water by frequency. I water whenever the plant needs to be watered. And in this case, I will water whenever the soil or potting mix goes completely dry. Depending on your light situation, your temperature in your home, and other factors, it can vary drastically. So however long that takes, that's how long you're going to wait. I would recommend not using a moisture meter. I'm not a fan of moisture meters just because I've had many of my readers kill their plants by using moisture meters because, frankly, they're pretty junky and you can't really rely on them to judge your soil moisture. So use your finger, stick it in the potting mix, and that'll give you everything that you need. Before I go on, I wanted to make a quick announcement. I'm so excited. I have my first book coming out in March of 2022. So here it is. It's called Houseplant Warrior. It is available for pre-order right now until its launch date, which is March 15th. So you can go ahead and click on the description in my link if you'd like to pre-order the book ahead of time. As far as fertilization goes, these plants are not heavy feeders. You can fertilize maybe 2 or 3 times during the main growing season. You'll be just fine. For this plant, I've actually been using Dyna-Gro Grow, and I'll also include the link in the description below to that fertilizer. I actually use that for most of my houseplants. It's an awesome fertilizer. It's urea-free, and it contains all the micro macronutrients that plants need. Normally, for that fertilizer, I fertilize all my plants at every watering dilutely. I add a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon per gallon of water. Make sure you measure both your fertilizer and your water to make sure you have the proper dilution. And I normally, for most plants, will use that at every watering. For this plant, I probably do that every other watering or so. Now on to a couple common problems that people have with this plant. The first problem is the lower leaves turning yellow. Now, I don't have any on this plant right now, but every plant will get that. Every plant will get that. As the plant grows, naturally it will shed some of its lower leaves. So you can just go ahead and pull them off. They actually pull off pretty easily at the base. Yellow leaves at the base of your plant will also occur when your soil or potting mix has dried out completely and stayed dried out for quite a long time. Although these plants do like to dry out, they don't like to stay bone dry for exceptionally long periods of time. They can definitely survive. But if you want to keep your plant in tip-top shape, you really need to have good consistent care and don't neglect them too long. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the common issues with ponytail palms are the brown tips. Don't worry if you get some brown tips here and there. That's perfectly normal. No plant is perfect. I do let my plant dry out completely or just about completely before I water again thoroughly. But if you leave your plant too dry, you're going to get really big brown tips. And there's nothing wrong with just cutting them off. So let me show you how I cut off the brown tips. It's very simple. So here's our brown tip on the leaf, and then it turns green here. I'm just going to leave a tiny bit of the brown part. And there we go. And I do this every so often, maybe every 2 or 3 months. I go ahead and groom my plant and cut off all the brown tips and pull off any of the yellow foliage that developed at the base of the plant. Easy peasy. Another problem that sometimes people have with their plants are when the tops of the leaves kind of flatten out. So a healthy, well-grown plant should have nice arching leaves, as you see here, nice curvy archy leaves on top. So if you see that your leaves are flattening out or that they're limp, immediately go ahead and check your potting mix. Has it dried out excessively for a long time? That could cause the leaves to collapse a bit. Or perhaps you left it wet for too long. Maybe it's cold in your house and it's sitting in water. Now, if you have your plant in a terracotta pot, there is one thing to be aware of. Terracotta pots are wonderful because they will dry out really quickly, and that's what these plants need. But at the same time, they're also bad for the same reason, because they dry out super quickly. So if you have a very warm home and you have your plant in a very sunny window, which they like, and you also have your plant in a terracotta pot, expect that your potting mix will dry out very quickly. So just keep an eye on it. And you may need to water more often than you think. That's the trick with terracotta pots. It's both a blessing and a curse depending on what you're growing. and also your conditions. I actually have my plant here in a glazed ceramic pot, and it dries out in a reasonable amount of time, and it's been doing really well. I actually made a repotting video for Ponytail Palm, so be sure not to miss that. Do you have a Ponytail Palm at home? Do you have any comments or questions? Comment below. I do try and respond to every single comment that's made on my page, and I will do my best to help you guys out. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell so that you get notifications on all my new videos. And I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching.